Hi, I'm Carrie Knauer and welcome to Carrie's Kitchen. Today we're going to make sweet potato biscuits, which are going to be perfect to take home to your family for the Thanksgiving dinner. They're very light and they are flaky, and they just have this great little sweetness to them that comes from the sweet potato. Are you ready to cook? First we're going to prepare our sweet potato to microwave it, and that means, pricking it all over with a fork. Sweet potatoes are usually pretty big. You want one that's about 10 ounces or so, 10 to 12 ounces, and we're going to cook that on high in the microwave for 10 minutes. In the meantime, we're going to start getting the dry ingredients together. Now I'm using the scoop method here, which is really the most accurate way to measure out your flour, because it doesn't get so compacted when you use the actual measuring cup to scoop it. This recipe uses several teaspoons of baking powder. And baking soda as well. You want to put a smidge of salt in there to activate the rising agents. And since it's a sweet potato biscuit, I'm going to put in some cinnamon as well. And then half a cup of sugar to make it a little extra sweet. Here we go with a full cup of vegetable shortening. And I'm going to use a pastry cutter to cut it into the dry ingredients. This is a tool that can be a little tricky to get used to, but I usually just spin and kind of grind it in, almost like I'm using a mortar and pestle, but you're using this pastry cutter, which is kind of like a giant fork. Okay, the sweet potato is out. Be careful because that plate can get really hot. Now I'm going to cut it open into quarters. Now you could let this cool a while, but I'm usually impatient. I'm just going to scoop out the sweet potato flesh. I'm putting this in a separate, smaller bowl. Now I'm using the potato masher to mash my sweet potato. I'm getting out all the old-fashioned tools today. Next I'm going to add the yogurt. And I'm using plain yogurt here because I don't want it to be too sweet of a recipe. Now we're going to add a stick of butter. And since the sweet potato is still pretty warm, it's going to help the butter to mash up a little more easily. Now we're going to add the wet ingredients to the dry ingredients. It's okay if they're not super incorporated at this point. They're all going to get mixed in. Now I just want to get the dry and the wet ingredients mostly mixed together, but you don't want to stir anything too hard. So I'm using a spoon here instead of the pastry cutter. You just kind of want clumps to start forming. Now I'm preparing my work surface with some flour so it won't stick to my countertop. And I'm going to knead them together in the final step. Which mostly means I'm just going to pat it together. And all that butter and shortening in it is going to make it stick a lot better. My goal here is going to be try to get a 10-inch square that's about half an inch thick. And then I'm going to use a pizza cutter to cut it into my squares. Now you can make whatever size squares you want to do, but I think I'm going to try to get 20 biscuits out of this. And then I find it helps to use a pancake turner to get them onto your cookie sheet. They're still pretty delicate and they can fall apart kind of easily. Now we're going to put them into our preheated oven. It's 450 degrees. And we're going to cook it for 10 to 15 minutes until it starts to get nice and lightly golden brown on top. It should really be smelling nicely too at that point. And you want to get them off of that cookie sheet and let them cool on the wire rack. And there we have it, our very unique sweet potato biscuits.